Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and so this is round 2 of the Russian report dissemination, and this time it's about the impact of the Russian interference on the Brexit referendum with what is surely the biggest scandal contained in this report, and not what you will be expecting, I guarantee, unless you've read it, in which case you already know. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, I'm not going to assume people have watched my introductory video this morning. That'll be fine. You won't need to have done. It'd be nice if you did. But forgive me if you have done and the odd thing is repeated. It's not going to be much, I promise. Now, essentially, the report highlights a number of methods that Russia employed in trying to interfere in the 2016 Brexit referendum. Other political processes as well, but that's what I want to focus on here. The report does not contain proof that it was effective, or even details of the specifics, simply that there is serious evidence that attempts were made. And this was further highlighted when the Intelligence and Security Committee of MPs, who have just released this report, called for a specific independent inquiry into Russian interference into the 2016 Brexit referendum. The government rejected the call immediately. Now, ask yourselves a question. Why are the government deathly afraid of agreeing to an investigation? Now, they don't get to say because there's no point. That doesn't wash here. One of the most important select committees in Parliament has called for it. There is a need for it. People mustn't buy there's no point in an inquiry because there's no base for it lies. The government authorises inquiries all the time. At the drop of a hat, it authorises inquiries. It authorises inquiries when it tries to distract attention, for example, from all the racial inequality reports that Boris Johnson is currently blocking. He commissioned a load of reports and then he's not republishing them. He agreed to another inquiry into racial inequalities in order to distract away from the reports that he won't publish. He will authorise inquiries at the drop of a hat. Why not in this case? It's not a great hassle for them. It's not even a great expense for them to authorise an investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 Brexit referendum. In addition, it's not like it's just some personality calling for it, or even a petition of citizens, although if it was enough signatories, that should be enough. No, these are MPs. MPs that are charged with the oversight of our security services, the majority of whom were personally selected by Boris Johnson, and they have called for this. They have called for an investigation, an independent investigation. The only reason for the government to block this is because they expect such an investigation to find proof, and specifically to find proof that the Russians involved themselves in the process in order to push a pro-Brexit vote. Now, if you had watched the video earlier today, the report made clear that the reason Russia, the motivation for Russia, the reason it wanted to interfere, is it sees the US and the EU as real threats against it. NATO specifically, when I say the US, specifically NATO, but NATO and the EU, it notes that it considers them existential threats to them. Now, we know that neither NATO nor the EU are behaving aggressively towards Russia. But Russia believe that, so that's their belief. So the reason for Brexit is obvious. It weakens the EU. It also weakens the UK, which is an ally, is a key player in NATO and an ally of the US. So there's the motivation for it. It's easy. Now, whether there could be some legal way of circumventing the government on this, on the issue of the investigation, the inquiry, I don't know. I suspect not. I suspect that what you need is for Parliament to get behind these calls, in which case it would be easy. Parliament can do what it likes. If a majority of Parliament vote for it, it's happening. Now, if Conservative MPs abandon what shreds of patriotism that they have left and do nothing to force the government's hand on this, then I'm afraid I'm not sure that there is anything that can be really done, although I am not an expert, so I cannot really pronounce on that. It might be, suppose that is that, because these MPs are pretty tame, aren't they? They'll never oppose Johnson. On the balance of probability, I would agree. However, we have to bear in mind that all 5 Conservative members of this Intelligence Committee are pro-Brexit, and they were personally selected by Boris Johnson. Obviously, he's reconsidering his choice now, but they were still appointed by him. And these MPs want that investigation. It's important to remember also that Russia interfering in the process doesn't invalidate anyone's views on Brexit. Unless, of course, your views on Brexit were influenced by the Russian boss. But what I'm saying is you still get to think that leaving the EU was a good idea and also accept the reality that unfriendly foreign powers involved themselves and interfered in the process. Because, for example, there are at least 5 members of this committee that think that Brexit is a good idea, but also recognise that Russia interfered and they want an investigation. So this doesn't become a Brexit issue. The government would like to make it a Brexit issue. It's not. Even though I'm talking about it in a Brexit video. Now, I can't imagine there are too many opposition MPs who would be against such an investigation. They'd be all for the independent inquiry. So it wouldn't actually take an overwhelming number of Conservative MPs who are genuinely concerned about the security of the nation to force Johnson's hand. We've already seen Conservative backbench MPs force U-turns from the government several times in the past few months. The same could easily apply here. But will it? I mean, that is the question. And yet, another test, what we've got here is another test of just how many people in the Conservative ranks would see their own country burn rather than take a challenge to their political agenda regarding Brexit. But a key point in the report regarding the referendum is that the government knew that we were a top target for Russia and did nothing to counter that threat. So that must mean that they knew the threat was working in their favour. Now, given that they blocked all investigations, how could they possibly have known that Russia would be working in their favour unless they had their eyes wide open to the real interests of the powerful Russian elites that keep donating to them and their party? And from that point of view, this isn't just about Theresa May, certainly not about Boris Johnson, but David Cameron as well. He was the Prime Minister during the Scottish independence referendum where allegedly Russia involved itself there. He was also the Prime Minister during the Brexit referendum. And he campaigned for us to remain. So why didn't he ensure that our systems were protected unless he just felt himself dependent upon Russian funding or for some other reason? And then the question has inevitably arisen, and this is the real scandal in this report. You know, a lot of people taking away, okay, so this invalidates the Brexit referendum. There's something much, much bigger here. The question arose, why didn't our security forces intervene? If MI5, MI6, GCHQ had intelligence on Russian attempts to interfere in our democratic processes, why didn't they act? The report refers to these agencies as not believing that they had a role in combating threats against our democracy. Let that sink in for a minute. Because I thought they did. I thought MI5, MI6, GCHQ were absolutely there to protect us against these threats to our nation. They don't think that. They don't see that as their role. That's a bit of a disparity going on right there. They saw themselves, according to the report, as providing intelligence for Her Majesty's government, whom, of course, didn't want that intelligence. So it didn't go anywhere. Nothing happened. The report describes the issue of defending our democratic systems as a hot potato, it's the term they used, that nobody wanted involvement in. Basically, you've got one agency going, oh, no, nothing to do with us. It's them that you need to talk to. They go, no, them. No one wanted to touch it. That itself is a major failing, which again, the government have no interest in. And if Parliament doesn't do something about this now, that they know, then they are also demonstrating that they have no interest in the defence of the realm. They have no interest in the defence of our democracy from overseas threats. The reports say that the protection of our democratic discourse and processes should be a ministerial priority. Boris Johnson has read those words over half a year ago and done nothing. Now, the report did refer to a programme that was announced last year, years after this became an issue, and it's called the Defending Democracy Programme. But it noted that it's too fragmented, and it does. You know, this programme seeks to involve lots of different agencies again. The implication here is that when you have, if you have a hot potato issue is something that no one wants to touch. You've got various people who could get involved, none of them want to. In other words, the responsibility for it has not been defined. How do you deal with a hot potato issue? You make a named person responsible, or in this case, a named organisation, but it should be a named minister responsible. But by coming up with a system that has lots of different people in charge, as the proposal suggests, you don't deal with that core problem that nobody wants to touch it. Because nobody will touch it again. Because everyone, if there's lots of people involved, everyone will just assume it's someone else's job, not my job. And when it all goes wrong again, and it will, everyone will say the thing that went wrong wasn't in their area. No, that's there. Now, finally on this issue, the committee felt that MI5's reluctance in particular not to want to involve itself in the thorny issue of the 2016 Brexit referendum was illogical. So the committee, and that's this committee, by the way, as well as the committee that produced the report, so that's like 10 MPs in total, 18 MPs in total, apologies, felt that this was fundamentally about hostile state interference and that our intelligence and security agencies should play their part. So the take home from this is that the reason our intelligence agencies didn't get involved is because they wanted to avoid the political arena. You know, they didn't want to step. When there's domestic politics involved, they don't want anything to do with it. They're quite happy dealing with threats that are entirely overseas, and they're not very happy when it involves direct conflict, potentially with government ministers. The implication here is that our intelligence services will allow a government intent on damaging the security of the state to do so. Now, this isn't me saying that our government, whether David Cameron's, Theresa May's or Boris Johnson's, have deliberately weakened the UK. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm pointing out is that what the report makes clear is that, let's say hypothetically, a UK government wished to weaken the security of the state, our intelligence services will not stop them. And this is one of the aspects of the report that I did not expect, and I'm betting you didn't either. I imagined a scenario where MI5, MI6 and GCHQ were being lent on not to act, actively forced by government. In the same way that the police and the National Crime Agency were forced not to pursue criminal cases relating to the illegal Brexit campaigns. No, it seems that the government didn't have to lean on them too strongly. They simply had to not ask them to do something, because those agencies are quite happy to distance themselves completely, even at the cost of security to the state. And I did not, in my worst moments, think that this is what would come out of the report, because this means we have no effective defence of the realm against attacks if the agencies who we feel should be protecting us think that it might be stepping on political toes. That needs to change. Parliament needs to change that. And none of this party political bullshit, none of this Brexit bullshit, that needs dealing with right now, because that is a threat to us all. But there we go. That was a bit of a journey. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. We haven't finished unpicking this report just yet. There is at least one more to come. That'll have to be tomorrow. We do not yet know, or I do not yet know, what Keir Starmer is going to say in PMQs later today, but we will soon find out. Until then, I'll see you later.